My name is Noam Cohen. I play in a band called Swain. Yeah, I'm from Holland. Three of us are from Holland. One of them is from Germany. And what kind of music? That's kind of hard to define, I think. We kind of seem to move it around every once in a while. So, I don't know, I guess people call it alternative rock. I heard a lot of grunge. I don't really think that term is very relevant these days, but I don't know, we're just doing the music that we want to make, really. So let's start with Howl, for example. It's not technically our first release, but that was kind of like a hardcore punk album. Pretty aggressive, pretty loud, pretty relevant for what we were feeling at the time, I would say. And yeah, I don't know, the Long Dark Blue came around. We wanted to just kind of, I don't know, I think it became a little bit better maybe on the guitars and stuff. And we wanted to kind of like fuck around with that. And I think with us, it's just, we get really tired of just doing the same album. Like we could do another Long Dark Blue or another Howl, but kind of seems like that would be boring or something. So with Negative Space, we figured, why not just, you know, let's just sing a little bit and let's kind of see how it goes. And me and Boy, the guitar player, we had been writing a lot of music on our own, which was more in that style. And so we borrowed a lot of like things that we learned through that process, basically. Yeah, for the new album is highly different. Like, let me get this straight. Like, I get it. Like, you know, I get it. However, I think if you're saying something like, oh, it's Nirvana, I think you're missing out on all these really good bands from that era that I think we listen to a lot more. And for Negative Space, obviously, there's a lot more different influences in there. There's a lot of Radiohead in there, obviously, as well. I'm a huge fan. Yeah, I don't know. I think, actually, if you look at the instrumentation, purely at the, you know, the chord structures and all that kind of stuff, actually, a lot of it could also fit on the Long Dark Blue. It's just toned down. I mean, I don't really frame it in that way. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. It's just, at this particular moment in my life, I want to sing as opposed to screaming. Like, don't get me wrong, at the live shows, we still play all the old songs and I still scream. And that is an experience for me that is very enjoyable. It's very, you know, cathartic in many ways, but not always what I want to do. And I found myself ending up being on stage and screaming things that I didn't really felt like I wanted to scream. Some of the songs, that's also why some of the songs we don't feel like playing anymore, because it doesn't really feel like it resonates with us. So it's more just like, well, what do I feel like doing now? What do we feel like doing now? Well, Jay comes from that time where everyone's referring, you know, the 90s and stuff. You guys sound like this and that. Well, Jay is from there, and you know, that's when his band was big. That's when he was like doing a lot of really cool things. It's just really nice to be in the studio with Jay, where, for example, me and Boy are behind the piano and he's around, and then it's like, okay, let's come up with a cool vocal harmony for this thing. And the way that he sort of like plays with music and chord structures and harmonies and all that kind of stuff just really resonates with the way that we do it. So it just seems natural to just think about these things in the same way and work it out the same way and that kind of stuff together. Yeah. Benjamin was really stoked about the Long Dark Blue, which was great. And then we played a show at his Zurück zu Hause festival thingy in Bielefeld, which was cool. Then I got to meet him, great guy. New album was planned out, and we were like, well, wouldn't that be cool? So we just dropped him an email. He was stoked. I mean, nothing more about it. There's no magic thing there, I guess. And he's a great guy. He came over to my house, and we just did it there and mostly hung out. And he's super chill. Well, I mean, like, I'm 30. and at some point, you know, like when you grow up, you know, for at least for me at least, you know, 15 to 25, everything is kind of really chaotic, man. And at that time, there was a lot of anger in me and in the rest of the guys in the band as well, I guess. And for sure, I know for some. And we had just approached things in a pretty negative way and in a sort of like unsustainable or unhealthy way. And in the last couple of years, especially with all of us moving to Berlin and going through a lot of new experiences with new people, we've been able to establish a better way to reflect and a better way to deal with problems internally and problems interpersonally. And we felt that that was something we wanted to talk about, I guess, on the new album. I don't think that was an active decision necessarily, but we do have, of course, Stefan on bass now, as opposed to, so the Long Dark Blue, I played most of the bass parts because at the time we didn't have a bass player. And on Howl we had a different bass player. So on every record you hear somebody else playing, basically. So that's probably part of that. And yeah, I don't know, it's just, in terms of production, I also remember this because during the mixing and the mastering, we were like, this needs more oomph. This needs more, a little bit more, something on the low end. We were kind of unhappy with the mix in the beginning. And then the trick was just, a little bit more bass. It definitely helped a lot. Yeah, so I think everyone in the band has a very different interpretation of that. When we were doing, so Boy, our guitar player, did the artwork. And when we were just going through the options, basically, that one was the one that made me feel the most things and made everyone else feel the most things. And so what those things were is perhaps less irrelevant. For me personally, I think sort of like the changing shape of the face or the altered face is kind of like, I don't know, I find it hard to be precise about this, but it seems to me that it sort of like relates to sort of like a self-image or perhaps the changing of yourself internally or something like that. What's next for Swain? So touring, so we haven't really announced a release tour yet as of right now. I don't know about when this is coming out, but it's coming, and we are also doing a really cool tour next year, which I'm really stoked about, but I can't say that yet. You hear about that next month. And we are looking into how we can get to the United States. There's a few things on the table right now. And then after that, maybe, yeah, more music. Maybe we'll try a different approach. Like the album format is perhaps slightly outdated, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.